You are now listening to Redbeard Talks Redbirds, your home for all things Cardinals baseball. Welcome back, Redbeard Talks Redbirds. It is February 15th, and we're getting ready. Spring training games are just about to start. I've got Matt Johnson here, going to talk a little Redbirds baseball. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Good, man. I have a beverage of choice, so doing all right.
Beverage of choice. That's always nice. Yeah. My beverage of choice at this time of night is usually just water, so I can kind of come
Depends on the
down.
night.
Yeah, that's true.
So, Matt, where are you from? Who are you? What are you doing?
I am Matt Johnson. I've been a lifelong Cardinal fan. I was born in St. Louis back in 1966. The
Cheers.
first recollection of Cardinal baseball for me was the early 70s. Again, that was probably the late I want to say probably Ted Simmons, uh Lou Brock. You had Bob Gibson in there still in the early 70s, but again, they were a good team, but not one of their great teams, not like their 60s teams. Now, it's
Yep.
funny, when we were born in St. Louis, my dad used to go watch them play before Busch Stadium was built at Sportsman Park and then at Busch because we left in 68. Yeah, but he'd see, say, Gibson.
66 was the first year for Bush too, wasn't it?
Yeah, but he'd see him go play against the Dodgers. You'd have Gibson, on the mound against Drysdale or Koufax.
Oh, nice.
I was like, yeah, that must have been a heck of a game. He said,
That,
yeah,
that's
there's
a
some,
hell of a matchup.
so that was it. And then the 70s and the 80s, you know, I started playing more and more baseball myself. And that was the thing is
Well, 80s was a good time.
was a very good time. That was actually probably the best time, for me until recently here, until, about 10 years ago. Well, and again, I remember in '04 when they got back to the World Series, it'd been a long time because I remember the 87 series against Minnesota. I remember the 85 series against Kansas City.
Yep.
But again, until 85, Kansas City was really my American League team.
Yeah.
And then when that happened, and I still don't like this to this day, I've turned my back on and said, you know, Brett Saberhagen, the rest of them, that's it. You guys never. George Brett, and I always had a lot of respect for George Brett. But when 85 happened, I'm like, that was my senior year of high school. And just what a downer.
Done with those bastards.
Yes. And again, I remember 82 was my freshman year. I was on the high school baseball team, and I'll never forget. There's a guy who I played right field. He played center field, and he was a real big mouth. He was a huge Milwaukee Brewer fan.
Oh, geez.
And after game one, when Milwaukee won game one 10-0, he comes to the locker room and then out in the dugout, just chirping about how awful we were and they're going to beat us in 4 games. And after a 10-0 loss, what could you say? It's like, well, yeah, I mean, and then it was just so nice and just vengeance was best served cold when Bruce Sutter's on the mound, Game 7, and we're about to close it out and win our first World Series since like 1967.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that was quite a drought until 2006.
Well, you're a little bit older than me. My first major playoff memory was 96.
Hmm.
For me, it was the Cardinals up against the Braves in the NLCS, and I had a buddy of mine that was a big Braves fan, and so we're both going to school wearing Cardinals and Braves jerseys on game days, and of course the Cardinals blow a 3-1 lead and don't
Remember
make
that
the
when we got
World
a 3-1?
Series.
Yeah, that was something. That was unbelievable.
Yeah.
A 3-1, and then, but you got to remember the Braves really got hot, and they really kind of carried that into the World Series until
Well, I mean, the Braves, they won their division, what, like 13 years in a row or something?
yeah, they were
Just
the Bobby Cox years were something for them.
they were an amazing team year after year after year. They
Hmm.
just only got the job done one time,
Yeah, that was what 95.
something like that.
Yeah,
I actually lived in Georgia at that time, so I got to go see the Cardinals when they came to Atlanta.
well, that's nice. Yeah, I used to get to see the Cardinals go here when they would come here for spring training in Orlando, which was nice. They'd play out of Disney. And I remember going to see them
Did they
in
used to play
'06.
up in Orlando?
Yeah,
Okay. I know they were in Tampa for a time years and years ago.
they'd come play in, like the Braves here in
Oh,
Orlando.
oh, you don't mean they were based in
No, no,
Orlando.
they weren't based here. They would come
Okay.
play. Like I said, I would make it sure that my dad and I would go see them play when they came to Orlando. Again, the facility out at Disney is really second to none.
Yeah.
So when they would come into town, of course, this is when you had Mac on the team still with the because he was the batting coach. Albert was still a young guy with us at the time. We had a Matt Holliday.
Oh, yeah.
So it was a exciting time to be a Cardinal fan and great games.
Yes,
But I
sir.
always remember whenever I could go see them in spring training, they'd win the World Series because I saw them in '06 and '11, and it's like, bam, there they are.
Well, as
And I'll
memory
tell you what,
serves, you went to go see a game last year and that didn't go too well.
yeah, the streak broke.
Maybe you got to see him in Orlando. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, I'll tell you what though,
Well, so what do we got going on? I know you want to talk a little bit about last year and bring up some pain points for everybody. So why don't you do that as fast as you can?
well, as fast as I can is, I mean, I'd like to really kind of express pitching. I mean, what do you think of the pitching staff this year compared to last year?
Well, so my big thing, and I feel like I say this over and over again, my big thing with the Cardinals for 10 plus years, we seem to always have good talent. We always have a lot of guys with good potential, and people don't play up to their potential, and folks get hurt, and the season goes sideways almost every year. Even if we're
Yeah,
making the playoffs, it's still, we don't seem to really have what we need to have. Like 2022 was probably the first time in quite a few years where I actually felt like we had a shot to do something for real and go deep in the playoffs, World Series, something like that. I felt like we had the team and the guys built to make a real run. Um, so I guess that's my broad outlook on the Cardinals. And then if you zero back in, it's kind of the same thing for pitching. I thought we had a pretty good staff and we had a lot of guys really perform very poorly last year.
hmm,
And granted, you're talking about World Baseball Classic, and we had, I want to say, 11 different players out playing in the World Baseball Classic for
yeah,
weeks at a time with very little spring training time. We've got a new starting catcher who's trying to learn the pitchers and vice versa, and all that going on, and then just a ton of people underperforming. Like I
100%.
wrote down some stats in preparation here. Miles Mikolas last year was the worst year he's had since he was a Ranger in, I want to say 2016 or something like that. He had a six something ERA for the Rangers.
Yeah,
In 2018, Mikolas he was 18-4 with a 2.83 ERA.
hmm,
And he's kind of bounced up and down a little bit. 19, 20, 21, he had 4+ ERA. So still decent, but not where he probably should be. 22, he had a 3.2 ERA. Last year, he jumped all the way back up. Like I said, the second worst that I saw in his stat sheet with just a real
yeah,
quick look, 4.78 ERA. Just really, really bad. And his whip numbers went way up last year. And, he was the main guy outside of Jack Flaherty that we were relying on. Jack
yeah,
Flaherty is one of those guys where, again, tons of talent, tons of potential, but can you actually put it all together? And so far, it seems like he's struggling to put it all together. Now, granted, not a Cardinal anymore. I'm always going to root for him, but that's what we had when we had Jack Flaherty.
yeah,
Um, most of the other guys in our starting rotation are new to us, or at least sort of new, Lance. But like Steven Matz, he actually had a fair year last year. I'm looking
mhm,
at his career numbers, ERA 4.25. 2022, his ERA is 5.25, and he pitched in 15 games.
yeah,
Last year, his ERA was 3.86 and he threw in 25 games. So, I mean, looking at that, Steven Matz actually had probably about the best year as a starter that we had.
Yeah.
And this year, he's like our number five starter. So that's encouraging. Um, but going into this year, we got Sonny Gray, who he's kind of bounced up and down a little bit as far as his career numbers, but his career ERA is a 3.47. Last year, he's a 2.79. The year before that, he's a 3.08. And he's a competitor. Dude wants to work hard. He wants to win games. He wants to beat you into the ground, from what I can tell. So
And
I'm
right now,
really excited to have him.
yeah, with a 2.79 right now, that is the ace of our staff. That right there.
100%. Absolutely.
Because I mean, you think about last year, the best ER we had last year out of our starters was a 3.42 in Jason Montgomery. And
Well,
again,
and we only had him for half a year.
yeah, but I mean, and still he
Jordan
was 6 and 9 before saw the door. And again, if you look at Mikolas, you look at Flaherty. I know you're sad to see Flaherty go, but again, Flaherty was only 7-6 when he last year and was with us. In 13 games where he got a decision in, 7 wins, 6 down.
My biggest thing for him is I like him and I know he could be really good. I just hope he's not really good for someone else. I'm
Yeah,
selfish.
no, you're right. I mean, that could be like the Steve Carlton
Yeah.
dilemma. Where
But like Miles, we know he can be better. 2018, he was really, really strong. 2.83 ERA, 18 and
Mhm.
4. That was a great year. And then he's been solid since then. Lance Lynn, we know that he can be good. Last year was bad. His strikeout numbers went up last year, higher than normal, but he gave up a ton of home runs and his ERA was 5.73. But his career
he had a hard
numbers,
time pitching out situations, also though,
that's
and that was
true.
why his ERA balloon.
That's true. His career ERA, even with last year being so bad, is still a 3.74.
Yeah.
That's a strong career ERA. And you know the
Oh
dude
no,
is going to show up and he's going to throw a lot of innings. He's going to try to help the team, whether it's by winning or eating innings. So I'm happy to have him.
but Alex, I don't know this stat, but I wonder how many of our guys actually got a win last year, even when they had a poor outing, like a 6-7 ERA night, and still got the W because our
Yeah.
guys got 10, 11. I guarantee it was less than a handful.
Well,
Because the offense
that's one
also
thing I
struggled.
think is interesting because wins is not really something most people are looking at anymore. I like wins for a pitcher. I think it's important. And if you're not thinking about it, it tells me you're not worried about the team winning to some
Yeah,
degree. We were talking before we started recording, and you kind of mentioned wins a few times, and so I feel like you're kind of a more old school guy, a little bit more like me as far as that goes.
absolutely. Because I
I
know
think
when our
ERA
pitchers
probably
win, we win.
encompasses the pitcher's performance better, but I think you have to look at wins. It has to be something that you're worried about, or you're not thinking about the right things.
I I agree also. I mean, you're preaching to the choir with that one. I
Yeah.
totally agree with that, man. Like I said, if we can't get the W, especially, I mean, and you want to keep your starting pitchers with W's, not your middle relievers. And if we can't keep starters in the game more, because again, you get those middle relievers going longer and longer innings, you get tired 2/3, 3/4 through the season.
Yep.
And we're
Well,
and
and
again,
your relievers are not guys that are there for long outings. They're not meant to be pitching every single day, 3+ innings a day. There's times when you have to be able to do something like that, but hopefully that's few and far between.
yeah,
Um, Actually, so going back to wins real quick, Steven Matz, our number five starter, in
yeah,
2022, he was 5-3 with a terrible ERA of 5.25. But in 23, he went 4-7 with a
yeah,
3.86 ERA. Go
yeah.
figure.
Well,
Um,
yeah, and again, that's an improvement. And
right.
that's nearly 3/4 of a run improvement.
That's
Now,
right.
Mike, he was still 4-7, and then I'm going back to the age-old question. I stated this earlier. How many runs and support did we get him?
I know. I know.
You think about that. If you think about our pitchers, you got Goldie, and you got Arenado when they both have under 300 RBIs. batting averages. Where's the run production going to come from? Our,
That's
our
true.
highest batting average
And
last year came from the eight spot.
yeah, well, and so last year we were kind of in a spot where no one was really hitting like we wanted them to, and we almost didn't really have a real leadoff guy. So
Yeah,
all of the on base across the board was down. Goldie and Arenado both, I think they were in the 270s. They both had decent years, but they could
no,
both
both
be
two
better.
sixties. You're in the two. I mean, Goldie was at 268, and Arenado was at two. I want like 264,
Okay. I
266.
was thinking he was 276 or something. Well,
But again,
yeah,
both.
and Tommy Edman, his on base and batting average was down. Even Brendan Donovan was down a little bit. And those
Yeah.
are two guys that we got to have higher average and higher on base.
Well, again, our best batting average last year was out of Jordan Walker. You know.
His rookie year, he was 21 years old.
Yeah. I mean, and again, hitting in the eight spot.
Right.
And that equals 71 wins. I mean, that's what
That
you
that
got
is how the
in
math adds
a,
up. Yes.
in a last place finish in the Central, going from first place to last place.
Well, so what does that mean for us this year? So I'm always kind of leaning on the positive side. I'm assuming things are going to be better. People are going to live up to their potential to some degree. I'm assuming Lance Lynn's going to have a better year. I'm assuming Miles is going to have a better year. I feel actually really good about our bullpen. So like real quick, let's run through the bullpen. Gio Gonzalez, Ryan Helsley,
Mhm.
Kittredge, Middleton, Jojo Romero. I like all those guys quite a bit. And then you got Palante, you got John King,
Yeah.
and then you have, probably a rotation between Zach Thompson, Libator, and Nick Robertson. And that's a pretty solid bullpen. If
Yeah.
people do what they're supposed to do, I feel real good about that.
But I mean, we had a lot of blown saves the last year also. Now you can blame that on the fact that we didn't really have a lot of work out of, again, our brand new catcher after, Yachty
Hmm.
retires. You know, we didn't get a lot of work with the pitchers and catchers. And that might cost us, heck, as many as 10, 11 games. But still, even if we win all those 10, 11 games, we're still only at 81, 82 wins.
Yeah.
And again, good hitting helps good pit.
Well,
If
and
I'm a
how many
pitcher,
blown saves did we have? It was crazy. Like
it
18
was
or
nuts.
something.
Yeah, I mean it was nuts. And again, when you have 20,
If you convert 9 of those, that's 80 wins.
yeah, and again you have almost 20 blown saves. That's let's say we go the other way, we win all 18 of them.
Yeah.
Now you're in
Now
the
all of a
90s.
sudden we're in
Yeah,
the playoffs and
yeah,
we're
we're in the playoffs.
enjoying ourselves.
Yeah, and that's really what it comes down to. And again, I think that's what it was. Is some of these guys, you look at Mikolas, you look at, with Wainwright, that's really all they knew as a starting catcher for all those years was Yachty.
Yeah.
Now you got
I
a night.
actually I was watching a podcast the other day. I'm gonna try to watch more of theirs. I was entertained by it. It's I think it's called Foul Territory with AJ Przinsky and another guy.
Mhm.
And they were talking about Yachty specifically because Przinsky was a Cardinal for like half a season or something. Yachty was hurt, and so they were trying to find someone to fill in for a while because it was going to be an extended period of time. And he tells a story talking about Yachty and how well respected he is and how he's treated within the organization. And he says, you know, I watch Matheny turn around to Yachty and ask Yachty, "Hey, should I keep the pitcher in or should I pull him?" Matheny's the manager at this point.
Yeah,
Yachty's not even playing in this game, and Yachty
yeah,
responds and says, "Why don't you ask your catcher? He's sitting right here talking about AJ." And AJ's
yeah.
sitting there watching this back and forth, and he's like, "That's how Yachty's treated within the Cardinal organization because he is a coach on the field."
But Yachty was such a competitor, and they said in meetings he would actually remember from like 2 seasons ago how to pitch certain people. Like, so you could have a guy get injured for a season and come back, and he was starting to tear it up. It's like, no, 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 you don't do this. Here's how you pitch it. And I said
Hmm.
that was a true baseball man, and that was a guy who really knew the sport. I mean, he had not only was he a great athlete, but he was actually a fantastic student of the game. And I think that's why he
Absolutely.
lasted so long.
That kind of reminds me of I think it was Tony La Russa's book, Three Nights in August, talking about how he, when he was young, he'd hang out with baseball men,
Mhm.
and they would just like sit there and smoke cigars and drink alcohol until all hours of the night, just talking baseball and all the scenarios and all the different things. And there's probably some parts of that that maybe are not necessarily great for the game or society, but there's some parts of it where it's, for me at least, it's like it's a little romantic because the game and how it's treated and how it's revered and the importance that people could place on it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's probably the lawyer in Tony, because Tony actually is also he is, he has a law degree.
He passed the bar while he was a major league manager, if I'm not
Yeah. Yeah, yes,
mistaken.
he did. And I think that's what it is. I think he's a true student of the game also. And I think when we got him, he wasn't a spring chicken. He wasn't a young guy.
That's true.
It was nice for him really to kind of, at the time, end his career with the Cardinals.
He
Because we had him
wore number 10 so that he could bring the 10th championship to St. Louis.
and he did. And that was, yeah. And that was, I guess what he got his number retired, a year later.
Something like that.
And I mean, what do you think they're gonna retire Yachty and Albert's number?
Yesterday.
Yeah. What about Wainwright? You think he gets a retirement?
Probably.
Think they put 40 up there?
Well,
I think they should.
maybe not.
A
I'd
guy
be
who
fine if they did,
had
but
over 200 wins. I mean, played his entire career in St. Louis. I mean,
well, so that takes us back to a conversation we had a week or two ago about old Kenny Boyer.
yeah,
Number 14 is the only number on the wall, the only retired number of a guy that is not a member of the Baseball Hall of Fame.
yeah,
So therefore, that leads me to say Wainwright probably won't get his number retired, but the man is revered. He's been a Cardinal for a long time, and everyone loves him. So if it was retired, it wouldn't surprise me.
yeah. Well, you think that's what they do with guys who are not in Hall of Famers? They probably just put them in the Red Jacket Club.
Yeah,
I
we've
mean, I
seen that a
think,
bunch.
and then I know he'll be there, but I mean, I think we should have more great Cardinals on the wall just for the fact of you look at 2011 with
We're
Chris
gonna run
Carpenter.
out of numbers, Matt.
Yeah, well, the Yankees don't seem to. I mean, so I still think we got plenty of numbers. I still think Chris
There's
Carpenter
plenty
belongs.
to choose from.
He belongs on that wall because again, he virtually put the team on his back in that 2011 championship team.
2011. Oh my God, he made it
Yeah.
happen.
So
I mean, we had a fantastic team around him, but he made that happen. 100%.
and really one of my favorite players will never be a Hall of Famer, but one of my favorite players, Jose Akendo, you know, I'd put him on that wall, number 11, because that is a true Cardinal man. That's a guy who pretty much spent his career with us.
He has
As
had
a
an
player for all
impact
those
on,
years.
he's had a huge impact on every Cardinals team going back to when? 70s?
83? No, I get he was with the Mets like at 17 years old. He was kind of like a Dwight Gooden. But he got, 2 years with them and then they released him. We picked him up and he was with us for really the entirety of his career. And then he was again our
Well,
coach.
and he's still with us, sort of.
Yeah.
He's a special instructor. He's in Jupiter right now. He's helping out all the infielders.
Yeah, I just think he's a little retired, and that's why he's just instructing, not third base coaching.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of like old Nicky Leyva, back in the day. You're probably too young for that. But yeah, he was our first base coach forever. And again,
Yeah.
another great, I mean, I'm not going off the rails here. I'm not saying put like Matt Holliday on. I mean, great Cardinal, yes, but I don't think he really deserves to be on the wall yet because he didn't spend a lot of his career with us.
Well, he played for us
Great
for
player when he
what,
played
seven
for us.
years?
Yeah, but I
I
mean,
mean,
he didn't. He had most of his career though in Colorado.
yeah.
You could really
Well,
say, Lance Berkman had a great, you know, cup of coffee with us. It really helped us win that
yeah,
11 championship also on the offense.
yes, he did.
So it's, and you've got Orlando Cepeda back in the 60s. A lot of guys that really played very, very well for us in the short time they were with us. So
You're not wrong.
I'm
I
not
I
going
think the red jacket is where those guys belong. That way
those
they
guys,
get
yeah.
honored the way they deserve. But retiring a number, that's a big, big deal.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So I do think that needs to be reserved for the very top echelon.
Yeah. I
So,
mean,
well, before we get too deep into that stuff, what else do
this
we
season,
have for this year?
well, as much as our pitching woes to glare, we need to be more consistent at the plate. And again,
Yep.
and if we can't have more than three guys hitting above 300, we're whistling in the dugout. We're not gonna get 90 wins if we can't have more people that are more consistent at the plate.
Well, so I'm a big fan of Tommy Edmond. I'm a big fan of Brendan Donovan.
Yeah.
If they can both pick it up a little bit, if Arenado can pick it up a little bit, if Goldie can pick it up a little bit, all of a sudden our team looks a whole lot better. Mason Wynn's got a ton of potential. I'm excited to see what he does. I love Newt Bar. Newt Bar is like, in my opinion, he's an all-around player. He's not Mike Trout, but he's an all-around good baseball
Yeah.
player. And then obviously we got Homeboy in right field who's going to show up and he's going to be exciting. I am really excited to see what he does, knowing the um the adjustments that he made in the middle of the season last year and how he was able to continue to produce. And even defensively, he got a lot better and he's got that huge arm. He's just going to be really exciting.
Well, if you look at Walker, Newmar, and also Wynn, they're all 25 years or younger.
Yep.
And that's unfortunately they've got to step up. They've got to get another step because yeah, they had a very good year last year, but again, we're on a team with only 71 wins. But these are the
Well,
guys that
and
really need to be around 300.
oh, I know. I agree. I just I feel like we've got the right ingredients, just people got to
Mhm.
do what they're supposed to do. Like Contreras last year, he really came alive in the last 6 weeks of the season. If
Yeah,
he can be anywhere close to that all year long, he's going to have a much better year.
he
Hopefully
has
he'll
to
be a
extend that.
lot more comfortable wearing red instead
Yeah,
of blue.
yeah, he has to extend that. And again,
Yeah.
we've got to get our starting pitchers more comfortable this year.
Yeah.
Get us more
I think
into
they will be. I'm excited to
yeah,
see what happens. We do have a few new faces, so when you
fifth
have
and
that
sixth.
many new people showing up, it it gives me a little bit of concern because they have to gel together and work together, but I'm excited to see how it goes.
No, I agree. And like I said, it is exciting. And I always get excited for every start of the season. And again, if you think about it, before last year, we always kind of started slow. We would always kind of pick it up in like July.
Yep.
And then we would go on that tear in July, and that's when we would really be kind of in the hunt. And last year, I was kind of waiting for that July to happen. It didn't happen.
I know.
And then
Well,
when it didn't
so
happen, I was
both
like, well,
Goldie and Arenado are traditional slow starters. But
mhm,
yeah, if we could start winning some games early, that'd be great. I remember that was one of the things Tony La Russa was always about. It was don't wait to win. Go win these games now because these games matter just as much as these over here on the other side of the
absolutely,
calendar.
absolutely. And like I said, it's try to get, you know, my all-star game in first or second position in the division.
Yeah.
Where you can either win the division or be a wild card team. And again, I
Yeah,
still
it's
think it's
all
even
about momentum these days for some
yeah,
reason. I think it's because of the extended playoffs. It seems to all be about momentum
because even wild card teams win the World Series.
almost every year.
Yeah, and I mean we wanted. I guess in 11 we were division champs. That's right. And I was going to say we
2006 for a
were
wild
06
card.
also. So yeah, so yeah,
All
but I
right.
mean,
So we got 6 minutes left. So one of my favorite parts of this, which we've kind of covered some of this already, but let's talk personal story, personal memory.
well, personal memories, I've kind of already talked one about the 82 World Series. I've got to say, probably other than, that great game six in 2011, I got to say in 1985, I was again a senior in high school. We are going to the World Series, but we had the Dodgers in front of us first. And in game five, and we beat them in Busch Stadium on an Ozzie Smith home run. That
Go
barely, I mean,
crazy, folks.
uh, well, like I said, I mean, I can go there, but again, this is one that was much earlier because this was so much more monumental. This is really what gave me my love story towards the Cardinals because I was a young man. I was, a teenager still. And again, I mean, you get that one. Then the very next night, next afternoon, we're down again. LA's Dodgers ace relievers on the mound again, Tom Niedenfuer, and then Jack Clark hits a 2-run home run. I'm sorry, 3-run homer to win the game
Yep.
in the bottom or the top of the ninth. I mean, that right there, and then of course that propels us into the World Series, which you had the tricky one where in Game 6, he was called safe when he was out. Even the umpires come back from that call now. Yeah, that made me mad. That was awful. I've
Why are
still
you
had friends.
listing that as one of your favorite memories? Come on.
That's not. I mean, I'm saying that NLCS was one of my favorite memories of
I
because
actually just watched a special about George Brett, and they kind of talked about that a little bit. So that was kind of interesting to see because I was very little at that time.
yeah, and you think about it also too is that's the only World Series George Brett ever got.
Yeah.
He never got another. I mean, he was in it playing in the '70s, but he
They
never won.
lost like three times in 5 years to the Yankees or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, sure did. Yeah, and those were some great Yankee teams, which they couldn't get past. And you can always say big market versus little market, and that was kind of like with us in the 2010 to 2014 stint with the Giants, and we could make it to the NLCS, but always losing that
Yep.
game seven for some reason. Those are
Yep.
always kind of tough. And I always think it comes down to buying that extra pitcher that's a little because again they have a very sloppy salary code in my opinion. The salary cap is very sloppy because
Yeah.
all you have to do is pay a little extra tax, and you can. And big cities seem to be able to get away with that, and little cities can.
Some of our biggest seasons that we had in like the early 2000s, I guess the 2010s, let's call them
Yeah,
that. We brought in a lot of somewhat under the radar guys that really helped out, and some of them were trade deadlines, some of them were off-season acquisitions, things like that. But like Ronnie Belliard, second baseman, showed up and he was like a spark plug and gave us a ton of energy and everything and helped us do a lot of things. And I'm trying to remember some other folks like that.
Jed Weaver,
Oh
the
my
dream.
God, yes.
I mean, he was that got him. That got him eight figures
Hmm.
because virtually before he came to us in 2011, he was done. They were done with it. The
Didn't he
major
pitch
league,
for the Angels before that and he kind
yeah,
of washed out and they gave up on him?
gave up on a week, and then he goes back out to California because I think he was a California guy, and
Yep.
signs a 10 million year or $10 million plus contract.
Yep.
Or also the little shortstop that played for us in '06, who's from the University of Florida. Gosh,
Are you talking about Eckstein?
Eckstein. Yes.
David Eckstein.
Yeah. How do you
He's
not love
amazing.
David Eckstein? Again, here's a guy who was a walk-on at college. By the time he leaves the University of Florida, he's the captain. And then again, that guy was hustled from pitch one to the end of the game.
That's
And
your
those guys you love to
2006
watch.
World Series MVP.
Oh, absolutely. And he
He
was,
took home like a brand new Corvette or something. And I think at the time in the interview, he said that was his very first brand new car.
yeah, he was so fun to watch. Like I said,
Yes.
I mean, great, great memory with
Yeah.
Eckstein. Yeah.
Love it.
Uh,
All right. Well, our time limit's about to wrap us up, so I think we
that's what
better
I thought. So my clock
finish
is
it off.
turning.
Oh, let me get to one thing. You started mentioning 80, 82 and 85 and all that. I was working at GNC when I was in college, and a girl walked in with with a National League Championship Cardinals t-shirt on, and she had a shirt on under it, and I bought the shirt from her for the Go Crazy folks. I
Yeah,
couldn't let it go. I had to try to get it, and I got it. She sold it to me.
that's
I
nice.
bought the
I've
shirt
got
from
my
her.
I've got my retro Cardinal shirt on.
I like it.
No, like I said, it
This is a brand new one.
looks good too.
I
Looking
know.
good.
All right. Hey, look, they're about to cut us off. So we'll do this again. Until next
Absolutely.
time, let's go Cardinals.
Thanks for having me. Go Cards.
Thanks, Matt.
See you, buddy.
Hey, y'all. Thank you so much once again for joining us for this episode of Redbeard Talks Redbirds podcast. Make sure you go over there, hit like and subscribe for this channel. And don't forget to hit that notification button. Make sure you don't miss the next episode. Let's go Cardinals.